Dear students, I'm back with another video on a very important topic once again, and that is sentence structure. Dear students, if you really want to improve your English speaking skills or writing skills, so you should really know about the sentence structure. So now let's begin. Okay, so now you can see a lot of pictures in this slide. You can see some different words like subject, verb, object that you are already familiar with. That is the usual or normal pattern of English sentence. Then you can also see subject and predicate, and then they are further divided into different categories. But now I don't think so you're going to understand this way. Now let's explore and discuss them in detail. Dear students, as you can see on this slide, that this is the regular pattern or the very usual pattern of a English sentence, right? For example, that is subject, verb, and object. Then you're already familiar that what is the subject, the person doing the thing. What is object, verb, that is the action that is being done. Similarly, if you talk about an object, that is the thing that has something done to it, actually the thing upon which the action is done, right? So if you see, we can call the subject our actor, the verb our action, and object the thing acted on. In the end, if you see, there is a sentence that Jenny loves paintings. So in this sentence, Jenny would be the subject, loves would be the verb, and painting would be our object. So this is a usual or a normal sentence pattern of an English sentence. Now let's see further. Okay, now in front of you is a kind of a flow chart, and which is the first stage is that of letters, then the second stage is of that of words, and we all know that letters, when different letters join, they make words, and then when words join, they make a phrase, and then when phrases are joined, they make a clause, and then we have a sentence that gives you a complete thought or sense about something. Now let's see what is the difference between phrase and a clause. So dear students, phrase is basically a group of two or more words in a sentence related to each other or acting as a single unit. That can be a noun, that can be a prepositional phrase, that can be an adverbial phrase, that can be an adjectival phrase as well, but that does not have a subject or a predicate. So we can say that that single unit that is made up of two or more words can act as a noun, that can act as an adjective or adjective phrase or prepositional phrase, but a phrase does not contain a subject or a predicate. That is the main difference or the main point of a phrase. Similarly, if we talk about a clause, so it is also a group of words in a sentence, but it has a subject and a predicate, or you can say a verb. So now we are going to explore further through different examples the difference between a phrase and a clause. As I told you in the previous slide, that phrases do not have subject and predicate. However, clauses must have subject and predicate. That is the main difference between a phrase and a clause. Now let's see through different examples how we can prove our point. Okay, so I hope that through this comparison, you will be able to differentiate between a phrase and a clause. So let us discuss them one by one. So phrase, as I told you earlier, that is a group of words that standing, together as a conceptual unit, and they do not have a subject or a verb, relationship. Similarly, if we talk about a clause, it is a grammatical arrangement that contains a set of words having a subject and a verb. Second point about phrase is that phrase is a component of a clause, and clause is a component of a complete sentence. Then the third point about phrase is that each word of a phrase has a meaning, but collectively it does not form a complete sense like a sentence because it is lacking a subject and a verb, right? It does not, give a complete meaning when it stands alone. Similarly, we talk about a clause because a clause is a combination of a subject and a verb, so it gives you a complete meaning and can even stand alone as well, as we have two types of clauses, that is independent clause and dependent clause. So independent clause can always stand alone. However, the dependent clause also gives you meaning like a sentence, but it does not stand alone as it starts with different conjunctions, and we have to write an independent clause with it to give you a complete meaning. Similarly, a phrase is a part of sentence without the two parts of speech, that is sentence and predicate. That is why we say that it does not convey a complete idea. However, on the other side, we can say that a clause is a part of sentence that having two parts of speech, that is subject and predicate, and that gives you a complete idea. So now you can read some examples that are given on the screen that are written in bold are examples of phrases. Similar, if you see the second column, there are some examples written in bold that gives you the complete sense, and that are clauses. If you look at the first column of phrases, fish swims in the water. So in the water is a prepositional phrase, right? It is acting as a single unit, and it is a phrase as well. Similarly, she's sleeping on the floor. On the floor is again a prepositional phrase, and it is giving you some meaning but not complete sense. Again, at the concert, over the horizon, and on the wall. All of these are examples of phrases. Now, if you look at the column of clause, you can see fish swims. So if we, just read fish swims, it's a combination of subject and verb. It is giving you a complete meaning, so we can call it a clause. Similarly, she is sleeping. She is sleeping. Subject, there is a helping verb, or you can say linking verb, and then is a main verb, sleeping. So it is also giving you complete meaning without mentioning on the floor. So again, this is a clause. Similarly, you can read the rest of the sentences. I hope it is clear to you now. Okay, now let's see further that what are different types of clauses. And in this slide, we are going to discuss only two types of clause, that is independent clause, which makes sense on its own and it can stand alone as well. For example, I went to school, it is a complete sentence, a sentence on its own. Similarly, if you talk about dependent clause, that cannot stand alone, however it also gives you sense or complete meaning, doesn't make sense on its own as a sentence separately, but it gives you some meaning. Although I wasn't feeling well, so in this sentence, although I wasn't feeling well is dependent clause. On the other side, if we talk about phrases, so phrases are, as I told you earlier, that there are words, a group of words that are without a combination of a subject verb component. So we have different types of phrases like noun phrase, verb phrase, adjective phrase, adverb phrase, prepositional phrase. All of them are, comes under the category of phrase that have, certain verbs, and, they start with certain prepositions or adverbs or adjectives, but they lack the combination of a subject and a verb component. That is why we call them phrase. Okay, dear students, for your further understanding, you can also read out the following examples of phrases and clauses, and certain different parts of the sentence are also being labeled for your understanding. You can have a look at them. Okay, it's time for a short quiz. I have given you certain statements, and some of them are phrases and some of them are clauses. You have to tell me in the comment section, the right answer, that which, statements or certain, group of words or phrases, and then similarly, which group of words, belong to the category of clause. Don't forget to answer me in the comments section. Okay, so here is a small note for you. What is a subject complement? Actually, a subject complement either renames or describe the subject, and therefore it is usually a noun, pronoun, or an adjective. Subject complements occur when there is a linking verb within a sentence. Often, a linking verb is a form of the verb to be, as we all know that be form of verbs play the role of a linking verb between the subject and its complement, like is, am, are, was, were, being, and been form. You can read certain examples that are given on the screens. The man is a good father, so over here is a linking word, and our subject is the man and good father is our complement. Similarly, the man seems kind. Again, over here, seems is playing the role of a linking word between a subject and the complement kind. Similarly, we have another object complement as well, which tells us something about the object. Okay, so dear students, as you all know that if we are studying English sentence structure, then it is not possible to talk about different types of sentence structures like simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. They are very easy to understand. Let's discuss them one by one. Okay, so firstly, we are going to talk about a simple sentence, a single main clause, and that expresses a complete thought. It has a subject and a finite verb, and may also have an object, like this is optional. Object is optional in such sentences. For example, Mary is beautiful. The ground shook. Take a seat. So such simple sentences that consist of a clause, a group of words that can be a combination of a subject verb or a subject verb and object, that consists of single sentences or a single clause, that are called simple sentences. Okay, then we have compound sentences. Compound sentences basically contains two or more clauses that are coordinated or linked in such a way as to give each clause equal status. It means that compound sentences are made up of two or independent clauses, and they're usually connected through conjunctions like fanboys. In the following example, and is the coordinating conjunction, and we have two independent clauses. We went to the movies and bought an ice cream. So this is the example of a compound sentence. Okay, then we have complex sentence, and it actually contains a main or independent clause and one or more subordinate or dependent clauses. The subordinate clause is joined to the main clause through subordinating conjunctions such as when, while, and before. For example, we all went outside when the sun came out. Because I am reading a long book, my time is limited. So in both of these examples, you can see that the subordinate clause is connected to the main clause through words subordinating conjunctions like when, while, and before. If you see the first example, all went outside. This is the independent clause. This is the main clause because it is standing alone. It is giving you complete sentence, meaning when the sun came out. This is actually the subordinate clause. This is the independent clause, dependent clause, because if we don't write the main clause with it, that is we all went outside, it won't give you complete sense or meaning. Okay, now we have the last category, that is of compound complex sentences, and it is compound complex is a sentence that contains at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. For example, Queen Elizabeth I was called a redhead. This is number one independent clause, but no one knew her hair color for sure. That is another independent clause because she always wore a wig. That is our dependent clause. So this is how a compound complex sentence is made. Because she always wore a wig, this is a dependent clause because it's starting with the subordinating conjunction, and this is how we make compound complex sentences that contain at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. Okay, students, it's time to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. Don't forget to give me your feedback in the comment section.